What's up, everyone? Welcome to my post-Fed meeting crypto analysis. And let me just start talking about what happened yesterday. So basically, Powell went out and he started telling us that the economy is doing well. And the same thing he repeats every time, which is the fact that we want to try to have a good unemployment rate and we're trying to have a good inflation data, and we have the target of having inflation close to the 2% target that we want, right? Now, if you look at the chart here, you'll notice that, let's go into the hourly. Right around the meeting's time, which was at 11 to 12 Los Angeles time, we noticed that we started dipping down, and then we have this huge dip which continued up until today, and a lot of the alts were crushed, a lot of the sentiment was bad, a lot of the sentiment flipped from hey, we're going to the moon to oh, we're going to zero and it's over. But let me explain why that happened. It's because Powell mentioned that the Fed basically cannot own Bitcoin. But this in itself is not a bearish statement. It doesn't mean anything because Trump and Congress, at any point in time, they can just pass a law or make an executive order and change that. So the market should not have reacted that bad to this statement. But yet again, the market does weird stuff all the time. The market doesn't care about what should happen. It just does what it wants to do whenever it wants it. This is why your job as a trader or an investor, it's not just to have an objective assessment of what everything means. Your job is to have an understanding of how people will react to a certain event, because a lot of people they can act stupidly to a certain event. This can happen. It's not the first time it happens, right? So the fact that the market acted so negatively to this one statement tells us about how the market can do weird stuff all the time, and your job is to always keep that in mind. Like, it's not just about what you think will happen, it's about what you think other people will think will happen, if that makes sense. And then you can make your own decisions based on that. So Bitcoin went down from 100 plus to, well, all the way to 95 today actually. And a lot of the alts were crushed, a lot of people liquidated. I did not expect that at all because we did have a huge dip here on the last week, on the last Monday, and this is where we had around $1 billion worth of liquidations. So I forgot if it was this Thursday or this Monday, one of those two, but yeah, I think it was this Monday. And I did not expect, because when a big crash happens, you don't expect another crash to happen the next week, right? So I did not expect that to happen, and this was probably a moment where a lot of people got crushed because no one thought another crash would happen this next week. And this was something I wanted to talk about, is that usually whenever a crash happens, you kind of have more room to make more risks right after that, because since price already went low too much and you had signs of reversal here, so you had it retraced all the way back, so you'll notice how this was an obvious reversal. So here you kind of had the room to play big, use a little bit more leverage, because you would assume that the next crash is gonna take some time for it to happen. But maybe the market did that and just got over leveraged here, and which led to leverage flushes that went all the way to 95 today, because we are still today, right? The new day started 2 hours ago. So, but the interesting thing is, if you look at the alts, you'll notice that right on the start of this new day, alts are actually doing better than Bitcoin because Bitcoin is down, but if you look at alts here, basically everything's up at least 2-3% ever since the last 2 hours, which the day started. So this was interesting. So the moment the daily open happened, alts started pumping. This tells us that alts were overbought during this crash, and it was obvious. If you were following the crash today, when it went all the way to 95, you'll notice how alts were just screaming and yelling, and it just retraced back to 98 really quickly. So if I go into the hourly again, you'll notice that we're on the 95 here. Within 2 hours, it pumped back to 98. So actually, not even 2 hours. Within 1 hour, it wicked up all the way to 97.9. So this tells us that the 95 bottom was a strong bottom, basically. And here we have our retest, and it seemed that this is just a strong support. But yeah, you never know. We'll see how that evolves later. But you know, Michael Saylor, keep following what Michael Saylor is doing. Okay, so he keeps tweeting what he's doing, so which is good. He's kind of like the face of the industry right now, of the market, of the crypto market. It's him basically. It's not Elon Musk. It's not Vitalik, obviously. So it's Michael Saylor. Everyone thinks he's a genius now. In 2020, when he first started buying Bitcoin, everyone thought, okay, this guy's an idiot. But now he's proving everybody wrong. So on Monday, he tweeted that MSTR, where is the tweet? Bought right, there it is. 15,350 Bitcoin for $1.5 billion at, as you notice, at 100K almost. So this tells us that he thinks that 100K is a good entry point, and kind of it is, right? It's hard to think that Bitcoin is gonna retrace more than probably 91. I don't know, but it just you're still you have to understand that you're still kind of early. Okay, like you have all of 2025 for the last phase of the bull market, but you never know. It might go even longer, but we are still kind of early. So Michael Saylor's prediction for Bitcoin in 20 years is gonna be like around the $20 million per Bitcoin, and when you see that he keeps buying, and especially on Monday he bought at 100, so he knows that 100 is probably a good entry point for Bitcoin. So keep that in mind. So yeah, keep following what he's saying. Highly recommended. And obviously he's creating the meme narrative around him as well. Enjoy the ride, and this is something important to make him closer to the people, right? So keep that in mind. So I guess this is it with Bitcoin. Well, the daily bands, the 1221 bands are still green, so this is good. Bitcoin is probably the strongest one. Obviously, it's not the strongest one ever since the breakout during election day. We had Cardano do a 3x. We had XRP. XRP is probably the best coin since this breakout. Did like a 5-6x. And when you look at XRP in the during this crash, you notice that it didn't crash as much as others. It's still strong. It's still a strong coin. It went probably 15-20%, but this is like from wick to the total bottom. You notice that others were just bleeding even more. And yeah, XRP is probably the strongest coin ever since the election day. So keep that in mind. So Cardano, when you look at Cardano, it's quite interesting that it actually first showed signs of bearishness around this area, where I remember that the 4-hour bands flipped red back in, yeah, December 8th. But the reason I didn't sell here, because I'm a long-term holder obviously, but also because I was waiting for the Fed meeting reaction, and obviously it didn't end up going well. But yeah, like this is where you had your first hint that you probably need to sell because it started showing weakness. Like when you see these type of candles, this is just a weak chart starting from here. If you look at the volume, yeah, like this giant selling. If you didn't wanna sell here because you thought it was a bottom, then you could have assumed there's gonna be a retest, which happened here, and so you could have assumed on you could have just waited for the bump and then sell. So this is what we talked about last week, that there was just a crypto spike because we just went to support, and this is where you had to be careful during today's dip because if you look at it from a price action perspective, so all the forget about all the fundamentals here because as you know, some people like to trade on price action, some people like to focus on fundamentals, and what you want to look at here, if you just want to focus on fundamentals, what you had was the bottom of this wick of the candle. So you could have assumed that obviously after this dip happened, you'll probably assume that we are just ranging now because the trend has ended, right? From bottom to top, and you can add the FIP tool to it to check like the vibe as to where you have some support or resistance lines. So obviously you'll notice that here it showed a strong support at the 382 fib line, and we're kind of ranging, and you can say that this is the bottom of the range because this is the lowest point of the range. So you do not want to sell support. Okay, so let me take this out for a second. It did try to also go reach the 0.5 fib line here, so you'll notice that also there was some front running of the 0.5 fib line at 82. But what I was saying is that you do not want to sell support, right? Because it's support, it's the lowest point of the range. Now you might say, oh, what if it goes even down even more? Then you have to wait for a confirmation of a breakout of the range. So what does that mean? It means you have to wait for price to break here and close around this point. This is where you have a breakout of the range. This wick is not a breakout. It's just a false breakout. It's just a wick breakout. Which just a wick. So it could be just a leverage flush. Some people had their stops here, for example, which was expected because it's the bottom of the range. They thought, okay, if it goes below here, then I just exit my trade. So they did that, but just went back quickly, which tells us that it is indeed a strong support. Now, obviously, if Bitcoin kept pushing down, then you would have to be worried about it even more because it doesn't matter. Usually, like this early part of the, not early, this part of the bull market, which is not the last part, and you wanna keep in mind that doesn't matter how strong of a coin is, if Bitcoin is just going down quickly, it's just gonna keep following it. So, but what happened is it just retraced back in actually, and it closed above the smallest point of the range, which was here, which is the 872 cents. And then once the day ended, it just retraced back up. So this tells us that this was a strong support here. It's that simple. You do not want to sell support just as you do not want to buy resistance. Okay, so you do not want to buy resistance. So this is the top of the range. You can say this is resistance, which makes sense. This is the highest price of this cycle so far. Okay, so you do not want to sell support. You do not want to buy resistance because what you're betting on is not the price itself as a trader mostly. What you're betting on is the change in price. So if it breaks support somewhere here and closes below it, then okay, there's a high probability that it's going to keep going down because it's a breakout. And same thing here. If it breaks resistance, then there's a high probability that it's just gonna keep going up. Okay? And it breaks above it. But when you are here, we are still at resistance. You do not want to buy resistance. That's just like a bad entry point because it's just a strong wall here. You have to wait till this wall is broken, then you can get in. Okay? So yeah, Cardano just showing weakness right now. You want to ask yourself is obviously you cannot sell. You do not want to sell support as we mentioned, but you want to ask yourself. Let's say if it jumps back, whatever here somewhere, you have to ask yourself, what do you want to do? Do you want to do a range trade between low and high? Do you want to just keep holding, which is what the majority of people are doing because we're in a bull market, so we expect price to keep pushing up, and at some point just gonna keep going up because we're in a bull market, right? The reason I'm a little worried about trading Cardano is because I'm waiting for the Charles Hoskinson narrative about him. He went to SpaceX like a month ago, and we're waiting for more information on that because he signed an NDA. We're waiting for Trump's inauguration to see how Cardano's price is gonna react. Is he gonna the moment he posts a picture with Elon Musk or Trump, that's gonna be bullish in itself. So this whole continuous narrative is important for Cardano. So what you want to do is, if you want to make trades, just make sure that whatever you take profits and then try to switch. I think that's what I'm probably gonna do is switch between using a little bit of leverage and just holding spot. So let's say you got in here with some leverage. The moment it goes up, you exit your trade and then you buy spot with the profits. That's one strategy, depending where you want to exit. If you want to exit at the top of the range, right? So when you have a dip and you know it's a bottom, so how do you know it's a bottom? You want to look for signs of reversal, okay? Or you could just assume this is support. Like, there's a lot of strategies, but signs of reversal is you go to a lower time frame and look for a market structure break. So if I look at the hourly, for example, I noticed that this is a market structure break here. So once this hourly candle closes, then you can get in. This one's stronger, obviously. So this is on a shorter time frame. Let's say it kept going up. You take profit, you exit the trade, and then you switch to holding spot, right? So that's one strategy. Because the idea is that you want to keep holding, or you want to be you want to be staying in at each point in time, or at most points in time, because it's a bull market. So you never know when it's just gonna keep pushing up and not come back. So even if you would have lost on some of the money you could have made by leverage, you would have at least still been in spot, and you are still going up in price, right? So keep that in mind. Or you can just you use high leverage when you have signs of reversal, and then once you want to take profit, you use smaller leverage. Okay, that's another strategy. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about MSTR, which is obviously Michael Saylor's company. And what you'll notice that happened is that as Bitcoin went down 10% from whatever 105 to 95, MSTR went from, let's say, around 400 to 320. But if you look at it here from Monday, so if you look at the MSTR Bitcoin chart, so Bitstamp, and you'll notice that in the since Monday, it went down 20%. So as Bitcoin went down, how much did Bitcoin go down? Let me just remember. 15%, MSTR went down even more. It went down 20 more percent of that. So what's 20% of what's 0.8 of 0.85? Probably around 0.6. So yeah, so the 15% drop of Bitcoin led to a 40% drop in MSTR, which tells us that MSTR is just like another altcoin. You treat it just like another altcoin, right? So it's a leverage bet against Bitcoin. As Bitcoin pushes really up, MSTR pushes up more. As Bitcoin goes down, MSTR goes down even more. If Bitcoin goes up, then goes down to the same point, MSTR in total is going to be going down. So this is something you want to keep in mind because you want to try to avoid treating MSTR like you do with stocks. Obviously, nothing I say is financial advice, but MSTR is just more of a altcoin right now. So what does that mean? It means once the bear market hits, you want to get out of MSTR. Just put it into Bitcoin. Okay, keep that in mind. Another thing I wanted to talk about is this similarity between the stocks aspect and the Bitcoin or the cryptocurrencies. We have it also with GameStop, for example. GameStop is just treated like a meme coin. It's a meme stock, so it follows the meme coin rules, which one day we'll have the. I'll spend some time talking about it. But yeah, so this is let me talk a little bit about the total 3 chart, and you'll notice how we went down from $1 trillion to 900 billion. This is not alt season. We are not at alt season. At alt season, everything is just going crazy. That's what alt season is. So far, the only things that went crazy, quote unquote, were XRP, Cardano, and maybe H bar, and probably a couple of meme coins, Pepe maybe, but that's it. With alt season, everything's going crazy. Everything's pumping. And this is not alt season. When something bleeds quickly, like what happened those couple days, I mean, not out of the sudden, because that's what happened at the end of the bull market. But this is just a range here. Okay. Usually, when the alt season ends, you just have an exhaustion where price just, after going up, it just goes down quickly. Okay. So this is not alt season. We still have a lot of coins that didn't pump. So, and I think TapTools mentioned it. So I'll talk about TapTools a little bit, but this is also another Twitter account I recommend you follow here. So we are still at Bitcoin season because alt season happens after Bitcoin tops. We are still far away from the Bitcoin top. Okay, keep that in mind. We're still really far away from the Bitcoin top. Like we have, remember, we have all these institutions coming in, the Bitcoin reserve that Trump mentioned coming in. So this is just a lot of money that's gonna flow into Bitcoin, and you want to keep that in mind. So we are still not an alt season. So don't worry too much, but also don't get liquidated. Okay, keep that in mind. So TapTools is just data tool that's available on the Cardano blockchain, which I highly recommend. So it just tells you a lot of data on what's happening on the blockchain, and they're following some of the meme coin stuff. So as you know, we have Snack, which is the main meme coin right now on Cardano, and some bunch of other stuff that are going up. I feel that once Cardano's adaptation of and hype around their meme coins becomes bigger and bigger, it's gonna help the network. And yeah, so I know the chart is not looking good. It is not looking good. Yeah, it's just obvious. So the daily bands are probably flipping red today. They didn't flip red today. We have to wait for this candle. I don't know if it goes above 102. it will stay green. But if you look at the 4 hour chart, it's just so bearish. Okay, just so bearish. So we are still at support, so that's fine. There's literally nothing you can do if you're holding coins here because we are still at support. The only, like, that's a good opportunity to buy actually because we are at support. So chart is not looking good, but we'll see how that will play out. I feel that the more the I feel that snack as long as snack keeps growing because it's deflationary meme coin, so which is good. Less supply. I feel this will help the network also on the long term to give up better pliers for ADA. Husky has been posted on a few centralized exchanges. They are small centralized exchanges, but that's a good start. So maybe that will help Cardano as well with the Husky. Because I've been following their Discord for some time, and they do have a good team. They've been building up stuff, working on their marketing, and working on the centralized exchange posting. So that was good. So keep that in mind. Yeah, I guess that was it. And let me see if I have any questions in the chat. If any of you have any question, just ask me. I notice there's 4 people watching. So you can just ask me anything you want on the chat, and otherwise I will just end the stream, I guess. Did someone say something on LinkedIn? Nope. Okay, I noticed that you all left. Okay, cool. Sounds good. Okay, thank you everyone for watching, and I'll see you all